What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Ham Radio Crash Course. Welcome to Saturday. Today we're going to be talking about tiny radios and then even tinier radios. Today we're going to be talking about Morse Code only or CW only radios. These are generally portable radios. They're a lot of fun and good for people starting out, good for people that are experienced, and definitely good for people that are going to be interested in learning Morse Code. You can take them anywhere, and they're a fun little piece to have in your kit. So enjoy the memes as we get started. All right, we'll flip it on over. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming out to the Ham Radio Crash Course. Appreciate it. Our Saturday show here, generally 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Appreciate you all coming out. We've been doing a bit of a thing. I've been trying to focus my free time, what little I have of it, is getting better in Morse code. And walking into this month, I do know the alphabet, but my weakness has been on copy. Last week, we talked to the Long Island CW Club. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully, they actually told me that I think there was over 100 people that had reached out, contacted, and potentially joined them. So that's awesome. I'll be seeing you in the classes. I was a bit busy with work this week, but next week I should get back to normal. And I will be in Orlando for Hamcation here next month. So we'll be talking more about that. And so there's going to be more of a focus on Morse code until I feel a bit more confident. And confidence for me is going to be activating a park. That's my goal with Morse code. So look forward to that as we build up to it. Next week, I'm going to kind of lay some of this stuff out as we get closer to it. You know, how I recommend learning. We'll talk about that a little bit, particularly as someone like I am. I call myself a beginner, and you can kind of follow along the process with me. But if you want to get started, Long Island CW Club is where I would say. And you don't need a bunch of gear to get started. In fact, you don't need anything other than the ability to get onto Zoom. So webcam, microphone, that's all you need. All right, couple of things. Mention hamtactical.com, the source for the Ham Radio Crash Course merch. If you're curious about any of the fun stuff we got going on, go check out hamtactical.com, and that's where you can see things like our coffee, which we're down to our last couple of bags. So if anybody wants coffee or some of our interesting T-shirts, check that out. As a just a mention for everybody to get the word out there, if you didn't already know this, the North American QSO party is going on right now. There's actually a lot of activity out there. So if you're interested in making some contacts on HF, you should definitely put up the antenna and get to play out there, as it's a lot of fun and it's an easy contest to get involved in. So make sure you check that out. So I do have a special guest. I thought it would be best if I brought somebody much more experienced than I am in this conversation. I got a couple of slides and we'll be talking about some radios. But first, let's introduce Adam, K6ARK. How are you doing, Adam?
I am doing well. Thank you, Josh. Good to be here to join you for the stream tonight.
So when it comes to tiny radios, I think it's probably safe to say you're well in that space. That is a space that you really, your heart is, it belongs to.
That is a fact. While there are times that I'll drag an IC 7300 and a Yagi up to a mountaintop on my back, there are plenty of other times where I try to minimize my kit as much as possible and carry the smallest possible radio to make an activation with. So yeah, yes, indeed.
And there's a couple of videos out there. I believe I've linked to one in the description if you want to see. May not be the final form of a Pixie, but dang near closest to the smallest you can get a Pixie CW transmitter. Link is in the description to Adam's amazing video. You activated a Soda Summit. How many contacts did you actually get on that Pixie? I forget.
I want to say I made 17 that day on that little Pixie, 850 milliwatts and a marginal receiver, but soda chasers are incredible operators, and we're able to make it. I think I even had like 4 or 5 summit to summit contacts that day.
I was just gonna say, I think you had a good chunk of summit to summit, which is always for those that don't know, summits on the air. If you get a summit to summit or a park to park, you also get those points. So you get points as an activator and as a chaser. So it's like best thing to do is get summit to summit or park to park. All right.
Yeah.
Well, have a sip of my cat cup beer here. Are you having a beer? I should ask you what you're generally a craft brew guy too.
I am indeed. Yeah, I've got a McKellar Brewing, a San Diego brewery. It's a New England style IPA.
Oh, I love that.
Despite
Yeah.
the fact that we're in San Diego,
I love
called
that brewery.
Windy Hill. They make some good stuff.
They do.
So, yes, indeed.
I've got a simple one. Stone. Just a self-righteous black IPA. This is actually pretty good. Sublimely self-righteous black IPA. Very good. So I'm going to I've got a couple of slides, and Adams knows a little bit about my slides, and as it says down there, he's there to keep me honest. Make sure I don't go speaking out of turn, because again, I'm a beginner as far as Morse code is concerned. But I wanted to kind of give people kind of a primer on what we're talking about, and the best thing to do is to see it. And so here's some of my what I would call smaller radios, tiny radios, whatever you'd want to see. And the one that we're going to pay focus on is this Elecraft KX1. So before there was a KX2 and a KX3, there was a KX1, and in fact there was radios before that were Morse code only. But the kind of idea with this radio is that it is multi-banded. You can change bands with the little band button here, so 7 megahertz, 10 megahertz, 14 megahertz. So this does 20 through 40 meters, 20, 30, and 40. It is Morse code only, but it can pull into single sideband. I'm on a dummy load right now, but it also includes a tuner. So if I go on to, if I have a less than great length of wire or 2 wires, I can control that with the tuner and get to where I would need to be, at least so the radio's happy. But this radio, to give you some size perspective, here's an Altoids tin next to it. So it's bigger than an Altoids tin. I have radios smaller than this that we'll talk about. But this is a full functioning radio, multi-band. It has filter control, RF gain control, and you can hook it up to headsets, or in this case, I've got a little tiny speaker here, and it will run on a straight key or a iambic paddle, pretty much whatever you want to use. So this is kind of what we're going to be talking about. I picked this up used, and in fact, that's the only way you can buy a radio like this today. These radios are no longer produced. They used to exist in kit form, and you could also buy them pre-built, I believe. But I paid $300 for this. This is probably the high side of the radios we'll be talking about today. We're going to talk about some other radios that are cheaper, and I have the websites pulled up for them, and Adam's got a couple of radios he'll show, and in fact, I'm holding a what'd you call this? Prototype paddle here, Adam?
Oh, yes, indeed. It is a prototype, pretty much coming to final fruition there. Go ahead and retract it.
Oh yeah.
Show the retracted position there. But I did my goal with this was to imitate the Pico paddle, which, as many of you know, is gone. But in a cheaper form and as simple as possible. So my goal with these is to put out some kits that require a little bit of final assembly, but give you a pretty well performing paddle with very basic, simple parts.
In fact, your paddle is smaller than the Pico paddle. At least it's shorter. Maybe a little bit wider. Yeah, a touch wider, but overall it's shorter. Nice paddle. Really cool because it's all it's mainly all 3D printed parts, so it's very inexpensive. So I'm excited to see where you go with that, and Adam will have more information in the future. So we'll be playing around with this portable paddle. But we've got other radios that we'll talk to, and Adam's got a bunch of radios that we'll cover as well. So let me hop back into the driver's seat here, and we're gonna go to some slides, and we'll let Adam feel free to correct me as I go here. All right, so CW only ham radios, many options for fun because they're not. We'll talk about it, but if you were talking about like KX2, KX3, 705, that's already a kind of a small niche market within ham radio. I would assume that base station radios like the 7300 and other radios like that are kind of like the movers. Lots of product move. When you start getting to the small stuff, like the small CW gear, then that's going to be even a smaller market, right? And so sometimes companies will come out with really cool radios, but then they just can't maintain the business aspect of it. They can't sell enough of them to recoup the cost, and then all of a sudden they're kind of out of business. So there's some really cool radios that just don't exist anymore, or they've now been replaced by things like the KX2. Pablo in the super chat, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. All right, so let's Let's go take a look at these. So just to be clear, CW only here implies transmitting in CW. That's its mode of operation. There are many radios that do single sideband now that are portable, but when we start getting small, you pretty much have to go CW, right, Adam? Is that pretty much?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The SSB rigs require a bit more complex circuitry, and you know, on top of that, you're going to need a bit bigger battery, because the power amplifiers in a SSB rig, you can't quite get the efficiency that you get out of a simpler amplifier in a CW rig.
Indeed. Matt in there in the chat, A4MQ, says, it's commenting to Jody, but KX1 is American made. It's an Elecraft radio. In fact, it was kits for the predominance of its life. So you can really only find them used. I was actually lucky enough to find somebody who had built it. Not the bands that I wanted. I didn't really want 30 meters, but I'll take it. They're hard to find. Okay. So generally when we talk about these smaller CW radios, you're generally going to be looking at kit, retail space, and then used. A lot of the stuff that we'll talk about, particularly on the cheap side, is going to be kit radios. There's a ton of them out there, and in fact, I've got a bunch of links in the description to a ton of them, and that's not even close to the top number of how many kits there are. Kits are going to be cheaper. Used is going to be things for like the KX1 that you can't really find anymore. That MFJ that was sitting next to it, you can't really buy those anymore either. Parts become scarce. Are there any radios you're looking for, Adam, or always on the lookout for that you can't really buy anymore, but are still kind of like super cool in this space? I know you've got one in the background you're going to probably show in a little bit, but yeah, go for it.
Well, yeah, I have a thing for mountain topper rigs. So any of the unique older mountain topper rigs catch my attention, and I try to pick those up. For a short time, I had 3 MTR 3Bs and an MTR 2B, and I'm down to just 2 MTR 3Bs now. So cutting back.
What was so in the same space as the mountain topper, there was a mountain topper type radio that had a built-in tuner. It was yellow. It was all yellow. Do you remember that?
I do. I can't think of the PFR1 or something like that.
Yeah, I was racking my. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's another Steve Weber creation, KD1JV.
I was racking my brain trying to find just a picture of it so I could put it in the slides, because they're actually kind of a unique radio. I know there's somebody probably in the chat that knows it, and they'll probably mention it to us. But again, because this is Morse code, you can kind of get away with a little bit less here, right? You just need a good enough receiver. Your transmitter doesn't have to be that beefy. And there's a ton of people that made really interesting radios throughout the years that either remain kits. You can actually find unbuilt kits that you can sometimes get, but a lot of them are going to be things that people built. And then lastly is retail radios. There's still a couple of retail radios on the market that we'll talk about. Adam has a couple of ones he's mentioned before that he recommends. But some of them, like the KX1 and the Mountain Topper 3-bander, is kind of hard to get. The LNR still technically can produce 3-banders. They just haven't for a while, right?
Right. Yeah, they're kind of in and out of stock, and they go through cycles of manufacturing batches of them, and you got to be on it when they come out, or you just got to get lucky and find one on the used market.
Yeah, they seem like they've been running through like 2 or 3 batches of the 4-banders for a while now, and I'll show you when we get to it. But and Adam has some 3-banders. I don't have any 3-banders, so you can kind of show a size difference. But they're really quite cool when you start looking at the size of these things. So we'll do some comparisons there. So why all of this? Yeah, we kind of talked about this on the podcast. By the way, check out the podcast, Hammer Radio Crash Course Podcast, that I do with my wife. And last week we talked about it with the folks from Long Island CW Club. But generally, when you're talking Morse code, a 5-watt radio that can transmit Morse code is going to get you about 80. It's comparable to about 80 watts single sideband, up to 100 watts, depending on your antenna placement, all that stuff, and how you have your radio configured. So for pound, ounce for ounce, and generally we're talking about ounces when you're talking about Adam's radios, 5 watts or less is going to perform way above its weight class. It's punching way, way, way high with the ability you can do with Morse code. So yeah, there's a a hill to cross to get over there with learning Morse code, but doing it kind of grants you access to these super cool tiny radios they disappear in your backpack and are really easy to take in the field. Really an advantage over single sideband. Adam, when did you learn Morse code?
So let's see, I learned Morse code probably about 4 to 5 years ago. If you look back in my videos and find a Wild Rose Peak Soda Summit activation, it's out near Telescope Peak in Death Valley. That was my first ever CW contact, and it was a summit to summit with AA6XA. He was on a summit in Nevada, and he said, "Hey, let's get the summit to summit." And I said, "All right, how about 7.230?" And he said, "I don't have a microphone with me." And I said, "Okay, well, this is going to be ugly, but we'll make it work." And that was kind of the beginning of it. So yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was.
You want to mention quickly kind of how you learned Morse code? We'll be talking about it later, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so for most people, 99% of people, the hardest part is learning how to copy quickly. Sending is a bit easier to learn typically. So to build my head copy skills, I actually never practiced writing stuff down.
Really?
I learned the alphabet, and then I basically just practiced while commuting to and from work. I've got a 40-mile commute, so I've got a lot of time, in the car, an hour a day each way. And I would just turn on a Morse trainer application on my phone and have it play Farnsworth speed stuff, 16 to 24 word per minute character speed with like whatever character spacing I needed to be able to copy about 50 to 75% of it. And I would just do that during the drive until my brain couldn't handle it anymore. And then I'd turn on the HRCC podcast.
And we'll fill that 40 miles up, no problem.
That's right.
So what was the app you were using?
It's called Morse Trainer. It's an Android app, and it's pretty good. You can what I would generally do is just have it send sets of call signs typically, because call signs are kind of one of the trickier parts to copy. And then it has another mode where you can have it send kind of a fake QSO, so you can practice copying a kind of a standardized QSO in the kind of Long Island CW club style format, which is also pretty good practice. So yeah, I did basically all head copy in the car while driving, and that's how I built that ability to be able to copy. And then once I had a foundation, I started activating summits on the air and chasing SOTA with it. I'll tell you what, man, that first time I put that spot out for on an activation and knew the pile up that was coming, I was literally shaking.
I bet.
trying to not freak out while I worked through the pile. But it all worked out.
The anxiety over that is real for me right now. Oh, yeah. I've set that as my goal, and I know that it's going to be like intense getting up to that point. But I think it's good. I think it's good to challenge yourself. So I'm really glad. Also, I'm glad that you're available for me to go bug about this. And in fact, I have made a contact with you over Morse code. I'm sure it was trash, but you heard me, and so that's all that matters at the end. Right. So I'm glad.
And that's what you'll find. One more thing. I just want to throw in, what you'll find is that you freak out a lot more than people actually care about your crappy sending. Everybody's been there, and 99% of people are more than happy to work through it with you. The other 1%, they want a fast contact, and they can go get it somewhere else. It's totally fine. Yeah. So it works out.
Well said. Well said. So I'll talk a little bit more about some apps. I have some slides to talk about that. But the last part on this slide to definitely hit is that a lot of these radios are absolutely, they sip power. They're super lightweight. They're real efficient. Some of them run just straight up on 9-volt batteries, and that's kind of their jam. I know Adam will talk about some power in the future in a little bit here. But big shout out to Frank. Thank you for the super chat. First time on the live stream. Greetings from New Zealand. Well, thank you for the DX super chat. Appreciate it. Jared Rayner says, "Hey Josh, KO4WAI here. Just got my call sign Tuesday. You and Leia are amazing and were a huge help getting me here. Thank you and cheers. Well, thank you so much. And my wife is in the chat right now, probably lamenting all the radios she sees on the table as I flip to the overhead. But thanks for being out there and listening to the podcast. All right. So let's go on. So feature set, and I'll let Adam talk a little bit about this, but I wanted to hit that largely the price swings are so big because the feature sets of these tiny radios vary greatly. I showed you the KX1, which is kind of like more of a top level, full featured CW radio. And then they go all the way down to kind of what we talked about in the beginning. The Pixie radios, super tiny. I think you can buy them for like $6-7 from AliExpress or whatnot. And the one that's shown there is a Cricket by 4 States QRP. Very simple radio, built-in PCB straight key, does 30 meters, 40 meters. They have a kit for either band. And the thing to keep in mind with a lot of these smaller radios is that they're frequency locked, meaning you don't have a VFO, variable frequency oscillator. They have a crystal that you shove into it, and then that's the frequency that it's going to transmit close to. So they don't have filtering. Sometimes most of them don't have AGC or anything like that. And some of them don't even have volume control. So it's kind of like a board that will take in RF and give you audio and then output RF. And then you kind of add accessories to it. Adam, this may be a good time to show off your 3-bander that you did a load of work on to be able to do what it does. I can switch over cameras here so you can go nuts. But yeah, why don't you talk to the features a little bit?
All right, let's do this. I'm going to swap my cameras.
Oh, right. This is fancy. We got a fancy stream today.
So this is your typical Mountain Topper MTR3B, the older version with the 7-segment display. And this has been through a lot of modifications. The first thing I did was swap the position of the headphone jack and the paddle jack because I wanted a nice little short cable from the paddle jack over to my Pico paddle, which I used to mount on the side, until I added a capacitive touch key circuit, which connects to these 2 little acorn nuts. And that is my iambic paddle touching those 2 little capacitive touch points. Another mod was swapping out the RCA jack for a BNC jack and adding a small speaker and a little audio amplifier. That's what this little circle is here. So I can even operate this without headphones if I forget my headphones. Not that that would ever happen.
If you watch Adam's videos, that has definitely happened, I think is what he's alluding to.
Yes. And the last thing worth noting on here is that one of the, well, actually a couple more mods on this. This was the standard 20, 30, 40 meter Mountain Topper, but these older ones with the 7-segment display, they had firmware in the chip to also potentially operate on 80 meters or 17 meters. You just have to change some of the other components inside. Ooh. So I swapped this to a 17-20-40 model. So I've got those 3 bands on here now. And then the final mod is one of the drawbacks to these little rigs is that you don't have an SWR meter. So I added a DK3IT tiny SWR meter in the LEDs up here. The yellow LED so cool. indicates, so yellow indicates power's flowing, and then the red progressively lights up as the SWR gets worse.
That reminds me of a question. I've got to ask it before we move on. When you did the tiny Pixie video and you returned back signal reports, how were you giving the signal reports?
You just guess.
Okay, okay, good. Matter. Okay, I was like, how are you doing that? What kind of wizard magic did you cook up to be able to handle that?
Same with a Mountain Topper. You just guess. It doesn't matter enough.
So even the Mountain Topper, and you can talk to this for a second. The feature set on the Mountain Topper is like not that heavy, right? It doesn't have volume control. There's no filtering, and the side tone
it's a fixed filter.
Fixed filter, fixed filter. And the side tone is not adjustable really. It's just like here you go. So sometimes folks, when they have the earbuds in, they'll like take them out when they're keying almost, or just leave them hanging on their ears, right? Because it gets really loud.
It can be a bit loud, yeah. Some people also use a headphone with an inline attenuator to adjust the volume. I actually have not found it to be bad, and I think there are other ways you can mod them to adjust the side tone volume, but I find it to not be a problem. I typically run mine through the inline audio recorder, which gives me some volume control
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the filters on these, I want to say it's a 300 hertz filter.
That's
So
good.
it's actually a very good CW filter in these. It's just not adjustable. So.
Right. All right, back to the slides. But yeah, that's kind of the point here, is that these they kind of lack features, but at the same time, at least the features that you would kind of expect if you were getting a single sideband radio. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter that much because of how you're using it and what you're using it for. It's not that big a deal. If you want pay more, get more is kind of the example with the KX1. It's well appointed, CW only, highly portable radio, but you're gonna have to go find them. They're pretty expensive. I got mine for, like I said, over $300, and that's like, I don't know. It feels like maybe that's going to become more expensive over time as it becomes kind of a wanted unicorn radio for people. But are there other radios like that, Adam, that are kind of like the KX1 that's a full feature rich CW only radio?
Let's see. Not that I can think of that's really sort of designed for portable use. I think the closest thing to it would be some of the LNR old LNR radios that are long discontinued, and there weren't very many of them.
Mm-hmm.
The FX2, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
That was CW. I think that was CW only. But yeah, the KX1 is pretty much the main one. I posted the link to the one we were talking about previously. The PF. It's called a PFR 3B. And it was made by Hendrix, but I believe it was, I could be wrong, but I believe it was a KD1JV design. So
I'm going to drag this over here and go back to the web for a second and show that. So yes, that's it. Yes, this is it. So QRPer.com, I know that person. That's Thomas. So, oh yeah, this is really cool. Yeah, okay, I need to find a better picture of this. Is there a bigger... Nope, of course. So that's the other thing you'll find as you start diving into ham radio history. You go to blogs and whatever. The links to old blogs and images will just go away because the hosting no longer exists. So sometimes you have to go to the Wayback Machine to, like, find some of this stuff. Let's see if we can find another link for it. See? Nope.
Yeah, here I got a link for you. Put it in the chat there.
Let's see if the eHams has got a better look at it, but very reminiscent of a cross between a KX1 and a Mountain Topper. Super cool radio, had an internal tuner, and it looks like K6ARK there. Oh yeah, there you go. Very cool. And that was the 3-bander, so 20, 30, 40, and it had internal batteries, which is something we'll talk about. Some of these radios have internal batteries, like the KX1. Very, very cool. So yeah, right on. All right, thanks, Adam, for finding that.
Sure.
All right. So some odds and ends. Some of the CW receivers will also receive single sideband, like my MFJ 9200, and the KX1 will do that, kind of just for shortwave listening or for amateur radio listening. And some of them have tuners internal, like the KX1 and the Hendrix, the PFR 3B that we just looked at. Now, another cool thing that kind of goes with this, if you are interested in Parks on the Air, I think this is probably one of the coolest things about this is everybody, well, this is more of a problem with Soda, not so much with Parks on the Air, but when you end up going to where you're trying to get to, sometimes you won't have cell reception. And the really cool thing right now with Parks on the Air is they will scrape from reverse beacon network. So if you call CQ POTA and your DE call sign from call sign, give your call sign, you'll get actually spotted by POTA from the reverse beacon network if you do that. So that's a really good reason to use Morse code as well, because you can just go out. You don't have to worry about having an internet connection or anything like that. Give your call. Of course, you got to get out to a reverse beacon node, but once you do that, you're good to go, which is, I think, a pretty cool perk. Do you you've done POTAs before? I know you have. I know I've watched videos for that. Have you?
I did a couple when we were up in Yosemite area, but that's pretty much it for me.
Have you? But, did you do the CQ POTA?
What do you mean CQ POTA?
Well, the reverse beacon spot.
No, I don't think I tried that. So it'll copy CQ POTA, and you don't have to have an alert or anything like that.
Nope, it'll spot for you.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that
Nice.
I want Soda to do that, because that's like one of the biggest
Yeah,
things with Soda is you get up to a weird peak, and
yeah. You
and
need an alert.
APRS doesn't work, and you don't have cell phone, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I hope I hear somebody and they can respot me. But yeah, that's one of the coolest things about POTA right now for my challenge here, is that I know that I can just walk out there and hopefully, if I make it, CQ POTA, and I'm kind of spotted it on the air. So I did
Yeah.
link to Parks on the Air their rules where or the FAQ where it talks a little bit about this. Were you going to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can do something similar with Soda, but you do have to post an alert ahead of time. So if you have an
Yes.
alert up, it will auto spot you from the reverse beacon network.
That's when you're like halfway up the scramble and you're like looking at your watch going, holy crap, the alert's going to pop. And I haven't made it up there. I've done that twice where I was not on summit when the spot popped. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
you got
happens.
some time on either side. By default, it's -1 plus 3 hours, but you can actually manually adjust that too. So,
Oh, good. Oh, I didn't know that.
mhm.
We'll definitely have Adam back to talk Soda again, because we're a couple months out of the season starting up, and that's always a good time to talk more about Soda and POTA and all that fun stuff. So we will do that. All right. So here's a big question, and this is good. Adam's here too. Why not just get a KX2? I think both Adam and I own a KX2, right? You've got a KX2?
I do.
Yeah. So a KX2 is great. They have arguably one of the best receivers, even in that tiny little package that you can get in comparison to even much larger radios. They're fantastic radios. They are kind of a shack in the box, right? It has its own power supply in the form of a battery. It has an internal tuner. It's, as of today's pricing, almost $1,450, right, to get a shack in the box KX2. So they are quite expensive. Feature packed, a beautiful, wonderful radio, and small. The KX2 is probably the closest in size to the radios that we're talking about today. Adam, why not just go buy a KX2?
Uh, I would say also the same thing. Why not go buy a KX2? And you're like you said, it all comes down to that price. If you can afford it and you can buy once, try once, it's hard to beat the KX2 for the ultimate portable rig.
It's true, and that's from somebody who's my primary radio, and if I had to pick one radio, would be the 705. I feel that the KX2 is a more portable radio than the 705. It will generally do everything you want it to do. Not necessarily as easy as the 705 will do it, but it's also just a tiny little, brick that you take along with you. Great radio. I like mine. I just use it less than I use the 705 these days, but still good. But hopefully that's answering the question that people are thinking about, particularly for CW only. I don't actually, I know you use the KX2 for CW. Have you ever used the 705 for CW? And do you have any thoughts either way on that one?
I have never operated a 705 before. So
Okay.
When we get together sometime, I'm going to have to try that thing out.
Good. We need to make that happen. But yeah. I'm curious, actually, once I get a little bit better at all this, doing kind of some of these comparison videos, because I've got a ton of these radios. I just need to get better at Morse code. So, all right. So with the CW Advantage, right? So you got 5 watts in your pocket. You can get away with a little bit more. Adam has a bunch of videos on what he's done with antennas, and those are all really effective antennas. But above his head there, that image is some of the more questionable antennas that sometimes show up on the market. The tapped loaded coils, QRP radio, blah, blah, blah. Those antennas will work, like the AX1 by Elecraft, right? That antenna. Those will work, but it's generally CW where they're going to be effective. They're not really going to be effective for single sideband. Ask me how I know, because I tried. You can do digital too, but CW is where you can get away with some of the stuff. What's the most compromised antenna you've ever gotten away with making contacts on, Adam?
Let's see. I think probably one of the best was before I learned CW. So I was operating sideband. It was a summit out in the desert here, and had my Yaesu FT817. And I forget what was wrong, but something was wrong with my antenna. I think I had an end fed half wave, and I think the matching unit broke or something. Something soldered broke. So I basically just took it apart enough to shove one end into the center of the SO239 connector, and
Yeah.
just physically shoved the end of the wire in there, and
Okay.
took the ground wire and wrapped it around the outside and ran it off in the other direction. And then I just kind of estimated lengths, because it wasn't even the right lengths that I needed. So maybe it was like an off-center fed dipole or something. Anyway, the lengths weren't what I needed, so I had to like fold back the ends and find that sweet SWR spot to make sort of a non-inverted V antenna, because I didn't have any feed line with me either. It was a mess, but it ended up working out.
I like it. I like the not only the links were wrong, but also my connection was totally hosed.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you don't have a double hitter like that, but yeah, that's a tough one to get away with. I think probably my most compromised antenna is a very similar antenna to the one again above Adam's head there. That's the MFJ, and I think it's the toy box antenna that is it Diamond, I think makes the one that has little tap points. I can show you later on the overhead. But I was using the AX1, which is the Elecraft version of this that covers 15, 17 with the tuner and 20 meters. And then they later came out with a coil that you added for 40 meters. And I had that in a windowsill in a hotel with my KX2, and I was doing CQDX worldwide, and made a contact with Japan on single sideband voice. That is stupid. I totally believe that they were using a local SDR to hear the signals calling them. I can almost guarantee they were doing that.
Who
Comet.
knows?
But regardless, I put it in the log. So that's my longest contact with the most compromised antenna that I could ever think of, out of a hotel room nonetheless. But that would have been
I love
even
it.
more effective if I was using CW. So there's my point on that. All right, so goals and balance. So this is the cool part about all this, is that when you have these smaller radios, you can also pack down your antenna, because they don't use that much. They're not, they don't put much power through the wire. You can also pack smaller power supplies, 9-volt batteries in some cases for some of these radios. So you can maybe not get crazy DX, although Adam will tell you he's gotten plenty of DX with his antenna, which is pictured right here. Right there is the K6ARK antenna, but that's not necessarily the point of some of this, right? If you're doing a SOTA activation or POTA or whatever, having just simple wire antennas and having them connected to your radio, you can still make all the contacts you need to get activated at very low power, as Adam has posted tons of videos on this. Adam was a bit of I got Adam on kind of late hour here, and I'm really glad he made it, but I was going to say, next week, Adam is back. We're going to be building his K6ARK antenna, which is now available on Amazon. Adam, drop the link for it, and I'll pin it if you got it handy.
Oh, sounds good. Actually,
Or
the best bet. Yeah, go to my website.
Yeah, go ahead. Drop whatever link you want. But so Adam, this antenna that we've been talking about for a long time is now available, and you can get it as a kit form. So he's going to be on my show next week, and we're going to build this live, and hopefully that'll help some people out, because I think your instructions and your video is real straightforward on how to do it, but there's a tiny boy that you got to solder down. So we're going to take Adam's best practices on building it next week to get it done. So right on.
It's tricky, I'm not gonna lie. And one thing I want to throw out there for anyone that has already ordered it and is working on building it, please, if you have any trouble with it, reach out to me. If you break something or screw something up, reach out to me and let me know. I want to make it right for you, and I will do everything I can to make you successful with your kit.
I love it. Yeah, you were telling some stories about people building, and you had to send them some parts to catch them up and all that. I think that's really cool, the level of support you're giving to people that buy the
It
antenna.
happens. Yeah.
It happens, sure, of course. I know, because I've definitely butchered some kits live on the YouTube, so
So
it's a real thing.
I was talking to N7KOM the other day. He's building one of the kits, and that tiny little capacitor in there, if you try to pick it up with your tweezers and don't grab it quite right, it'll shoot out of your tweezers across the room. And
Yeah.
he said he was searching for it for 10 minutes. And I said, oh man, let me know if any of you guys have that problem, let me know. I'll send you another one. Not a big deal.
Instructions were unclear. I ate the surface mount. All right, so the elephant in the room in all of this. So you want these, everybody, I don't know of a ham who doesn't think it's super cool if we had a small little bag that just kind of lived in your backpack. It just went with you everywhere, right? It doesn't weigh very much. It's just always lived there. And you opened it up, and in was this little playing card sized radio and a hunk of wire, or maybe 2 wires. And you put it up on a tree with your little key, and you made contact. There's nothing, I think, ham sexier than that concept. But what's the elephant in the room is learning Morse code. Like, how do you go about it? So a couple of, oh, I lost that one. There you go. A couple of ideas on that one. The first is, I think it's really helpful if you have a bit of structure. For me personally, I need a bit of structure, but I can't handle too much structure. And I think the Long Island CW Club is the perfect point. And we talked about it last week. If you want to hear directly from the folks from the Long Island CW Club, go watch my live stream from last week. Howard and Flip and Jim did a fantastic job on the live stream and joined us on the after chat and answered a ton of questions. I think that's really, really helpful. So go check out the Long Island CW Club. Just Google it. And in fact, I screwed up actually putting the link in there. But anyway, if you wanted to do this on your own, though, G4FON is a piece of Windows software. It'll work on 64 and 32-bit Windows based, or whatever your hardware is. It is very simple software, but really, really good at doing the Koch method and Farnsworth spacing, which Adam kind of already referenced. Koch method is where you add 2 characters at a time until you build the proficiency of those characters, and you just keep adding more. And then Farnsworth is the spacing that you put in between the letters and the words. For phone apps, there are 3 that I recommend. Morse Machine is the one that I think is pretty good for learning the alphabet, the characters. It's not going to help you for call signs or parts of QSOs or anything like that. It's just for learning the characters. Morse Code is a fun game, but it kind of loses its value at a certain point. And then the one I'm testing right now is called Morse Elmer. It's on iOS, so I can't really talk more about that other than it does do pro signs and call signs, parts of QSOs, and will run you through the Koch method and characters and Farnsworth spacing as well. It is 99 cents on the App Store, so it's not that bad. And then start copying. Get on the air, start listening. I know Adam did head copy, which I think is like the most Chad thing that I've heard him say in a while. Like I didn't write anything down. I just head copied my way into proficiency, that's pretty amazing. But listen, get on the air. If you have a radio in your car, I think that's a really good opportunity. Just put a ham stick up there and listen to and from work, tune around the bands, or do what Adam said was run the app. And what app was that again, Adam, that you were using?
I was using Morse Trainer. I know there's a bunch of others. I've heard one called Morse Toad.
Yep.
And I can't remember all the others, but perhaps some can mention it in the chat.
Yeah. So, okay. There's a couple of different options for that as far as different apps you can run. So do check them out if you're interested. And you don't, I guess the thing that some people are worried, or not worried, but scared off a little bit from the Long Island CW Club is that you don't need hardware to get started because a lot of it is copying in class. So you're going to write down what you hear as you build upon the characters as they come out with the Koch method. So it's easy to get started. Ham Radio Ninja, yeah, Ryan V. So if you search for Ham Radio Ninja, you'll go to his blog, and he has a bunch of RSS feeds that are not like published. You actually have to copy the RSS feed and add it to your podcast listening device, and you'll find like the 15 words per minute podcast, 20 words per minute podcast, and I think I've got the I've got the 15 words per minute podcast playing right now, and it's over 3 hours of just the 100 most used English language words. It's fantastic, and he covers QSO parts and all that stuff in audio form. Really, really good podcast. So highly recommend you do that. But there's lots of ways. I'm definitely not going to be able to cover them all here because we still want to show off some radios. So I'm going to move on from that, but that's what you do. All right, last. I think this is the last slide. Couple of radios to mention to go check out, and I'm gonna let Adam talk through some of these as well. So the cheapest, probably the cheapest starting point of a kit is a Pixie, right? There was people in the chat. It's like, is this a Pixie free zone, or can we mention Pixies? You can definitely mention Pixies. Adam, K6ARK again is going to talk about some of his Pixies. Adam, what's the Pixie like? Just right out of the box, if you build it. What do you think about the Pixie?
It's terrible.
Okay,
It's terrible.
Okay. But
they're
go
fun
ahead.
to build. They're fun to play with. It's
Yeah.
good motivation to learn CW, and I think it's a great soldering practice kit for people because they are fun to play with. But as far as being effective tools for operating and making contacts, they're quite difficult. The receiver is terrible. It's not very sensitive, and the filtering is awful. You often get overload from broadcast interference, and you hear like a 5 to 10 kilohertz spectrum of the band with CW signals all across that. It has no side tone and no key here. So it's all straight key with no side tone. So it makes it difficult to send clean CW. So yeah, they're quite a challenge to use, but they're fun to build. And I would encourage everyone to build one as a fun little practice kit.
So as far as
and just to have one.
As far as like radio usage, like if you're starting out in CW, Pixie's probably not the place to start because there's no sideband, and for all the other mentions or reasons you mentioned.
Can't tune. Yep.
You showed the Rockmite when we were talking before we went live. Would you recommend that for somebody as they're getting started playing around, maybe as a kit builder primarily?
I generally would not recommend any of the crystal bound radios, any of the radios that are stuck on a single frequency with a crystal that fit in an Altoids tin, because you're just going to be really limited with those. If you're insistent on building a simple kit, then maybe. But I would also say, look, if you want to build a kit, get a QCX Mini or a QCX if you want to make it a little bit easier. The instructions are incredibly good for those. And if you carefully read those instructions, even if you're relatively new to building kits, you can totally be successful with those.
Yeah, I would agree. So we'll skip, 4 States QRP's Cricket, I think, is pretty cool because it's 9-volt powered. You don't have to wind in any toroids, and it has a key built in. But also, it's not going to be your CW activating radio. You're not going to take that in the field necessarily, unless you want to build a 3D printed box or something like that, which you might. I don't know, but it's more of a fun kit. So once you go beyond that's when you hit the QRX Mini and the Plus, as Adam already mentioned. 4 States QRP has the Hilltopper. Have you ever played around with the Hilltopper?
Let's see. I don't have a Hilltopper. I have I can't think of the name of it. I've got a kit that I haven't finished building yet that's very similar to the Hilltopper. So.
Okay. That one has no screen. It's all CW for prompts and controls, which is kind of fun. Kind of fun I guess if that's the kind of fun you enjoy. It's not for everybody. I appreciate that. This is one Adam recommend, the Venus SW3 band. What's the reasons for the Venus? And I've actually got the website. I'll pull it up as you talk.
Yeah, so I recommend that one because it to me, I call it kind of a poor man's MTR3B. I believe it also has a built-in battery, but these are under $200, and they're very, very similar in function to an MTR3B. So a worthy option for a cheap CW multi-band radio.
Yeah. I picked one of those up, so I will be talking about it hopefully in the future based on Adam's recommendation. He's never led me astray, so it should be good. All right. So the one I'll mention, and this is the reference from from Joe Eisenberg. He's referenced the now TR35. It was the TR25. The TR35 is CW only. Again, another CW transmitter. $279, and it is a kit. And I believe from what I understand about that is that's all the controls. There's no hidden menus or deep function menus or anything like that. Like that is it. All the controls are right there on the faceplate. That can be misleading, the size of this. It is very similar to the size of the Mountain Topper 4-band. That's the same build kind of range of that, which is a pretty interesting radio. And again, all these are going to be in the description, so if you're interested. Now, I'm going to let Adam talk about the Mountain Toppers because he's definitely the most passionate about them. So the 4-bander is available right now. It is $349. I have one. I can show the size of it. But why don't you talk a little bit about them, Adam?
Yeah, so the Mountain Topper rigs are designed from Steve Weber, KD1 JV, and this is one of the older 7-segment display non-LCD Mountain Toppers. These were designed to be very small, very power efficient, and just really effective little CW rigs. The 3-banders come in 20, 30, and 40 meters. There are a few you can find that are 17, 20, 40, but those are pretty rare. The 4-band, I want to say, is 20, 30, 40, and 80.
Yep.
And the 5-band, I think, is 15, 20, what is it? 15, 20, 30, 40, and 17, or is it 80 as well? I think it's 17.
I don't know about the 5-band. The 5-band kind of gets into the space where it's too big.
Yeah, the 4-band, 4B and 5B are notably bigger than the 3B. The 3B is about the size of a deck of cards. It's tiny, and really, to me, from an ultra portable standpoint, the MTR 3B is impossible to beat. I run this thing for 2 to 3 hours off of a 350 milliamp hour lithium ion 3 series 11.1 volt battery, and 350 milliamp hours gets you 2 to 3 hours, which is incredible. It's the size of a 9-volt battery, and powers this thing at 5 watts for plenty of time.
Well, so interesting, in the chat, Joey Searles says the Mountain Topper 5-band is 15, 17, 20, 30, and 40. Doesn't have 80.
Yeah.
So the 4-bander gets you 80.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wish they would have built a 3B with 15, 20, and 40, because that would be kind of the ultimate, but it
versus the 30. Yeah. So 15 is a lot of fun, and it's only going to get better as we start, the sun cycle even opens up even more as we crest into 2025 here. Yeah. That's when it's going to be really awesome to have 15 meters, and some of the higher stuff is going to be really, really cool. Are there good, now that I'm thinking about that, do you have any like 10-meter CW rigs?
Oh man, I don't know of any 10-meter CW rigs, but listening to your podcast, the guy that was looking for a 10-meter rig, one that would be worth checking out, that the sideband is the old Radio Shack rigs, the HTX10 or HTX100, and you can find those for $100 to $200 usually. So
oh, nice.
I don't know of CW rigs. I think the closest thing you're going to get to those mono banders like that is going to be the MFJ Cubs. Those came in quite a variety of bands, I think including 6 meters even.
Those are still available too. I don't own one. They don't have screens, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So that's going to be one. I don't know if it has a CW readout like the Hilltopper does. You click the little button when you're tuning, and it'll give you a CW burst of which frequency it's on. I don't know if it works the same. I don't own one, so it's not on this list, but yeah, good point, Adam. All right. Yeah. So what else? Okay, so the Mountain Toppers, that's kind of the current pinnacle of CW only radios, and then obviously I mentioned the KX1 because it was kind of how I kicked this off. They're only available used, and I would expect their prices to be like $350 and up. At some point, it starts to get a little unrealistic to pay for that, but with the prices of some of these radios now, because they're no longer produced and people are getting real antsy to buy them, you could end up paying a lot more money for some of these things. So they start to get kind of coveted in a collector sense, I think. Even those three banders are starting to become way harder to find, right?
They are, yeah. They come up periodically, and they often sell for pretty much retail, even when they're used. Occasionally, you can find a good deal, but they're few and far between.
Yeah, so we've filled up pretty much the whole time. I kind of expected that to happen, but I wanted to show a couple of these off just so that we have some reference here. So I have the 4-band mountain topper here, and I have an MFJ and the Hilltopper. And I wanted to go ahead and back this off a bit and show you a little bit more about this stuff. So I'm going to turn this off. Actually, before I do that, I want to show you the coolest feature on the KX1. Some of you might have noticed that little arrow there. It says lamp. I don't know of a radio that has a flashlight, or in this case, like a map light kind of thing. And it literally has a little CW tablet lamp, a light. So you could put your paper logbook right here and fill out, your calls as you're doing it in the peak of darkness when you're on 40 meters and still making contacts. I think that's one of my favorite features of this whole radio
It's too bad it's not a touch lamp. That would really make
that would really add that would Leia would learn CW tomorrow if this was a touch lamp. But anyway, I digress. So let me turn this off and get it out of the way. There's a couple of other radios I'll mention just so you guys can see them and we can take a look. Okay, so here is the 4-band mountain topper, right? And here's an Altoids tin for comparison. So it's quite a bit larger. So Adam was telling you that the 3-bander is closer in size to the Altoids tin than not, closer to a deck of cards kind of thing. So that's the size of the 4-bander. So not a small radio, but and now I have to do the maximum comparison. Is here is a KX2, right? So this is the comparison to the KX2. So still quite a bit smaller, right? KX2's fatter, longer, right? So you guys can see that. Just to put that into perspective, this tiny radio, again, that is really easy to be portable with, it looks like a big radio in comparison to a lot of these guys. Honorable mentions to the 9200, which is an MFJ radio, no longer produced, which is also a good one if you can get your hands on it, actually. These are monoband, but the way they work, and this is actually the Altoids tin that rides with this, they use band modules. So I have a band module for 15 and a band module for, this is 40 meters, and I think I have 20 meters here. Oh, I have 17 too. So they're mono band, but you just bring more band modules with them, and you open it up in the back, and you're good to go. Some of these radios are internally powered too. So this is a bit bigger, this MFJ, right? In comparison to the mountain topper for comparison, and it's mono band, right? So you're like, oh, what's the point? This has 4 bands. Well, this has internal power. So it has a battery tray in the back here, a couple of batteries. And with that, you can operate for a decent amount of time. So there's the 4 batteries. You got to pull them out to charge, and this is disconnectable. So you can pull it off and connect it to a charger if you wanted to do that. The other one that does that is the KX1, and you can put lithium ions in there, like the Duracell lithium ions. It doesn't have an internal charge controller, which would be nice, but that's some of the realities of that. What else? Okay, so then here's the Hilltopper, just as a reference point for size. So it's kind of wide and fat. Get that into video, and about the same width as the mountain topper there, but it's much cheaper. So this is a $350 radio, basically, or $300 radio, and this is like $100, but it's mono band. So you buy one band, and then you got to build the kit for it, and then you're good to go. Cool. I think that was and I do have I'll mention this. I'm not really recommending it, but it's kind of cool. It is a Fox transceiver. This is CW only, and it has the BNC, and it has the CW key right there, and it takes a 9-volt plugged in right there. And I have a video on building this. This is the kit I built, and it works. But this is where we go back to Adam's note from earlier, not frequency agile. So you pay more to have frequency agility in this space. So yeah. All right. Well, we definitely blew by that hour. I had all kinds of ideas to talk about stuff. We might have to do another one of these where we bring you back to talk about stuff and read the comments, because there's going to be all kinds of people commenting. And by the way, I love your comments on these, because these are bit of the small, more of the niche side of ham radio, which I really like it when people start to get introduced to that. I mean, that's kind of why I do these live streams, is to try and introduce people to stuff like this. Adam, is there anything? Let's show off some of your, if you got the time, let's show off some of your tiny radios. I think that's now the time.
Sure, let's do it. All right.
Because these are things you okay. I'll give you a little primer, and you correct me where I'm wrong. You went, you're a crazy man. You took the Pixie kit, and you said, through hole components, that's garbage. I'm gonna do surface mounts on this whole thing, and this is your kit. So why don't you walk us through this, and I'll get out of the way here.
Yeah. So first things first, we'll go through the Pixies. So this is your standard, run of the mill Pixie with the acrylic case that you can get with it. I incorporated a straight key on top here with just a piece of shim stock, so I didn't have to provide a separate straight key. But as I looked closer at the board on these, I realized that there's about a third of that board that you don't really use, and you can actually cut off a whole bunch of that board and the thing still works. So what I figured out is that if you cut off enough of the board, you can get it to fit into an Altoid Smalls tin. So here's your standard Altoids tin. Here's your Altoid Smalls tin. And there's a whole Pixie inside this Altoid Smalls tin, along with a battery underneath, a port that I used for charging the battery, the SMA connector, and then the headphone jack for the audio out. And this little switch up here, this contact switch, basically turns the radio off when you close the lid and turns the radio on when you open the lid.
I love that feature. That's insane.
And the straight key on this is just this little piece of wire that when you press on it, it grounds out to the case of the crystal. And when it's grounding out, it's in transmit mode, and when it's in its resting position, it's in receive mode. So that's the straight key on this thing. I got a couple of those that I built. This one I gave a kind of a fancy paint job to. Kind of fun there, just a little bit of masking tape and a razor blade. But after going through that, I said, we can make this smaller. So working with some friends, AA6XA and Rex KE6MT, we started designing a surface mount version that I eventually sort of ran with. And I'm sorry, I know the camera quality is not the greatest, but this is about half an inch by I think 3/4 of an inch, and it's got components on both sides of the board. And one thing you may notice on there is a toroid. That's a FT20-43 toroid that is wound as a 49-to-1 end-fed half-wave transformer. So all I'm going to have to do to this is attach a wire, and that's my antenna.
That's crazy.
So
you not only
cool.
you didn't put a tuner on it, but you put a transformer to handle the long
Right.
wire you put on it. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, these weigh about 2.5 grams, and this is essentially what's in that video that I did the soda activation with. So
yeah, so you got 17 contacts on that bad boy. Look, and literally everybody appreciate the Altoid Smalls tin and the size of that radio. That's insane.
Yep. Kind of ridiculous.
That's amazing. All right.
That's good fun.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing that. We got a couple of questions if you've got the time.
Sure.
So Frank, let's see. Let me bring me back in here. So Frank asks, what are your thoughts on the true SDX from DL2 Man? So Adam and I have talked about this. Adam, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that radio?
I think it's freaking awesome, and I really want to build one.
Yeah. Did you
I
buy a kit?
No. So a while back, I bought one of the Chinese clones of the micro SDX. I think, yeah, micro SDX. Before I really knew about DL2 MAN's story and his that this was basically stolen from him. I encourage you not to buy one of these from China. I have done some testing on this. I've done a soda activation with it even, and it works okay. But it doesn't work well enough to even be something I'd recommend, even without those ethical issues and the problems with stealing his design. So he took that design further and continues to develop it. It's an incredible little radio, and basically what it is a modification off of the QCX Mini foundation into a multi-band, multi-mode radio.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it'll do sideband NCW, and I think his current version does, I want to say five bands. So super cool radio, and they are becoming more available as kits as people start distributing them. He's allowing that to happen, which is pretty awesome, and encouraging it nonetheless. So for those of you that are more on the kit building side and experimenting side, that's a really awesome radio to get and to play with.
Yeah. And so you don't have one of those kits yet? I mean, that was the
No.
there's a link to it, right? Like
There is.
You have to buy it's a DX ship, right?
Yeah. So originally the only way you could really get a kit was to order the PCB, either assembled or not, and then order all the components. And he had, all the files you needed to upload to PCBWay or whatever manufacturer you choose for PCB manufacturing and assembly, but it's not cost effective unless you do quantities, say 50 or more. So what they were doing was setting up group buys to get a bunch of people together and then, buy a whole bunch of them, and then someone would foot the bill and split them out and then get paid back. There is now someone in Europe, at least. I don't know that there's anyone in the US yet, but there's someone in Europe that is now making group buys and selling individual kits for a reasonable price.
Yeah, I've got the link. It's to a YouTube video. I'm going to post it in the chat. So I did pick. Well, I should clarify what I'm saying. So this is a pre-sale for this. So I'm gonna drop this link. You guys go check it out, but go in full warning that I don't know that you'll get your radio or your parts. I don't know what's happening here. I want to assume the best. That's why I did buy one, but I don't know what's going to happen. So I haven't seen any of them ship yet. So just be warned. You might want to wait until I get my hands on one. I don't know. So, okay, there's that. I've done my legal requirement of reminding people that sometimes the internet is scary. So, all right, couple other questions. Let's see, where is it? Okay. So, who was it? Paul G W2RIF asked, when will the Pixie kits be available? Adam, are you going to start making micro Pixie kits?
I am not going to sell those as kits, but I would like to get them manufactured and sold in the assembled state. So because the parts on here are very tightly spaced, 0402 sized components. We'll see if I can get this to focus, but yeah, these are not big parts on this thing.
No.
And it's incredibly difficult and tedious to build. I've had a lot of practice, and I still screw it up pretty regularly on these. So where am I going with this? I need to do a little bit of final refinement on the design. I actually want to add a little breakout board that has connectors for your headphone jack and your key jack and things like that. So it's more usable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's if you really want one of these PCBs, send me an email, and I might have some spares. I could send you one and share the bomb from DigiKey so you could build one yourself, but understand that this requires hot air solder paste and a very steady hand and a magnifying glass. So
Yeah, I don't know that I want to sign up for that kind of work yet, but
yeah.
all right. So another one from Ed Sweeney. He says, what antennas would be great for the Pixie kits? So I guess you've already activated with it. So what was successful for you?
Yeah, so I always use an end-fed half wave with radios like that portable. You know, when you're carrying a radio this size, it's kind of silly to carry a wad of coax like this to run a dipole. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah. That's why you
so
built the antenna transformer in the radio.
right. So so you know, with the transformer on the PCB, or you know, take a step back and put it on a BNC connector like the K6ARK antenna kit. You can end up with a very small package and even downsize your wire to 28 or 30 gauge and keep things really small. So end-fed half-wave, that's my answer for that.
And so everybody, reminder, next week Adam is going to be back and we're going to build the K6ARK antenna. So maybe you have the kit and you just haven't got the you haven't built up the courage yet to build it. We're going to build it live so you can build it along with us, and it could be a Q&A session where we try and fix some of your problems as we get to the end. And I'm willing to go as long as we need to get people sorted out if they're building it live with us, you know, and Adam's here. He's right here. He'll be able to help you live. So that could be a lot of fun. So if you haven't already, the link is there pinned in the live stream chat. So if you haven't got a kit, this is all, you know, fingers crossed for Amazon. They're on Amazon. So if you buy one today, it's probably going to be there next week when we go live. So you can go ahead and build the kit with us. And that could be a lot of fun.
I will warn you, and there's nothing really I can do about this. Fulfillment through Amazon is sometimes kind of slow. And that all boils down to the fact that I'm a small fry when it comes to Amazon, and my kits are not, you know, a standard item that's in every Amazon warehouse. So,
right.
So I apologize for the time it takes, but I wouldn't be able to do this without having some other system handle my fulfillment. So,
yeah, and I mean, I'll drop the. Let me flip the screen here for a second. So this is the kit, right? It's a small little baggie. And so actually using Amazon is pretty smart for that, because if you send everything to Amazon, they'll distribute it to their different centers for distribution and then get it to you the most effective way from their shipping lines, which is faster than, I assume, from San Diego, California, where you're going to be shipping from if you were doing it from home, right?
Right.
All right, so Barfing Cat asks, I just got my license a couple months ago, and I'm looking for a portable CW rig. I'm not very good at soldering. Which one should I get? In the retail space, I would assume for cost conscious, you've got the Venus or you've got the Mountain Topper. Pretty much, right? Those would be the ones that you'd probably mention, right, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. That would probably be my best suggestions.
Shark on Wheels says, oh, wait, this is the dude that makes the badass little transformer built on a BNC connector, right? Yes, this is him. This is Adam. This is the guy. So, yeah, we'll be building it next week. So make sure you come back next week and we'll build him up. I'll be building mine. Yeah, so I think that's most of our questions, and we've definitely gone over the hour. So, yeah, this is...
If I can throw...
Go, yeah, please. Take all the time you need.
In.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a question, a very common question about, can I upgrade the K6ARK antenna kit to make it handle 20 watts for the G90? And the answer is yes. And here's how you do it. I plan to put some kits together for this, but in the meantime, you can do it yourself. It's quite easy. You'll need 2 additional pieces to make that happen along with the kit. You need an FT82-43 toroid, which miraculously the FT50-43 toroid fits almost perfectly in the center of.
It's like a nesting doll.
It is. And if you wind it that way, just like the rest of the instructions are in the kit, if you wind those 2 together as if they're a single toroid, it'll handle about 30 to 35 watts, which is basically perfect for the G90 or another similar radio. So that's your secret. The other thing you need to add to this is that the 3/4 inch heat shrink tubing will no longer fit around the outside of that to finish it off.
Sure.
So you need some 1 inch heat shrink tubing to finish it off.
Nice. So that's it. That you just need a bigger toroid so it handles the
Yep.
heat. It's basically heat transfer at that point, right?
Yeah, because there's some efficiency loss in the toroid, right? So there's so it applies some degree of heating to the toroid, and you need it to be able to handle that before it gets too hot and breaks down.
Yeah. Or saturate, and then your SWR goes through the roof.
Right.
Nobody's ever done that on WinLink.
Yeah, never.
Adam, thank you so much for being on the show. You
Sure.
got some time? You're going to join us on the Discord for a bit?
Yeah, I plan to. I'll be cooking dinner, so but I'll have the headphones
Yeah,
in, and
well,
we'll be joining.
appreciate you taking the time to do that. So everybody, we're going to hop over to the Discord. The link is in the description for the Hammer Radio Crash Course Discord after chat. We will be there for a couple of hours or more just talking ham radio. And since Adam is going to be in the chat, we'll take your CW questions first. That's kind of going to be our primary thing. I definitely love the little mini CW radios. And for everybody going to Orlando, tell me if there's a KX1. Come to me first. Don't go to anyone else. Let me know if there's a KX1 there, and I'm going to run over and quickly buy it. But anyway, somebody asked what you're printing. What are you printing there, Adam?
So I am working on some components for a wire winder. I bought, so I designed some antenna winders. This is an example of one here that are nicely sized for about 60 or 70 feet of 26 gauge wire, either polystealth or some PTFE coated stuff that I bought 10,000 meters of. And my intention is to just distribute some of these cool little 3D printed winders and some wire to go with the kits. So what's on the printer is a tool that I'm building to very easily stick in my hand drill chuck and quickly wind off 70 feet of wire, wrap it with a twist tie, and stick it in a package with a wire winder, so you guys can have that to build with your antennas.
Very good. I will show off, since I was the first to get one of Adam's models on this. He also went and dimensioned out the Mountain Topper 4-bander and put these little wings on the side and this little clip. So there's a little clip on the end. So when I take my Mountain Topper, I can put this case over the top of it, which protects it, right? And then I can take one of Adam's antennas with the wire, and I can wrap it around the little wings, and then the clip is for snapping the little transformer into.
So yeah, the BNC.
So yeah, the little BNC will snap right in there. So I just haven't done it yet because he already tethered this to the winder, and I really like this. It works for every radio that I take in the field, so I haven't fully committed to that yet, but I do like the platform there. So that was a pretty sweet design that you did. And yeah, that was a real easy print too. I think I printed that was PLA, but I'm sure I could get it on ABS. But okay, so we're gonna wrap up here. We're gonna go to Discord. Adam's probably gonna be over there before I am. I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna go to Twitch. So I'll be live streaming on Twitch. We'll take your CW questions, but any ham radio questions are welcome, whether you're a newcomer or want to get into CW or anything like that. And we'll take your questions, and that's what it's all about. It's a big live group of people all on voice, and there's plenty of smart people in there that will be able to help you out. Shark on Two Wheels asks, are you looking for specifically a KX1 or a KX2 and 3 as well? No, KX1. I've got a KX2. I don't really want a KX3. Nothing personal against the KX3. I have a KX2. I think it's a great radio, but I would like a KX1 with 80 meters, but I would take any of them at this point because if you're into cryptocurrency, then the KX1 is like peak Bitcoin. If you buy one of those, I think you're going to be set because it's going to hold its value really well and go up in the market. All right, Adam, thanks again, man. I will drop all the links for you, but again, it's K6ARK on YouTube. Make sure you search for him and please subscribe. Yeah, thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And relatively short notice. I appreciate you could make that happen.
No worries.
All right. I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. I'm going to play those memes after I do, of course, the Patreon. I almost forgot to do that. Thank you so much, guys. The Patron Picks episode vote is probably going to go out today or tomorrow so that we can pick the topic for the first weekend of next month, February. I'm hoping it's going to be CW related. I think I'm going to try and curate a list of topics that are going to be CW related, but we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we'll just carry it into, whatever the fun list of stuff we already have. So really appreciate all the support. It helps make all this possible. So yeah, everybody that has questions, if you had any questions on the chat that I didn't answer or we didn't answer, hop over on the Discord. That's the best way to get them answered immediately. K6ARK is going to be over there, and I'll be over there shortly. So make sure you jump over there to get that done. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I think that it's kind of weird. I don't know that I could put into words properly how I feel about the small CW radios. We spend a lot of time like looking for the best base station radio. We want the, your 7300s, your 7610s, your FT4DXs, all that stuff, like the really, really nice base station radios. And look at all these features they have. But then you're like, well, I've got this radio that runs on a 9-volt battery and it kills because it's just Morse code. And you could literally have a shack that's just built on radios like these. You could have a really nice antenna outside and you could just run super light QRP. There's no reason you couldn't. So it's super cool. I love that about ham radio and Morse code. So that's one of my major reasons that I've dove in so hard to get better at it so that I can be proficient. I am Ham Radio Crash Course on Twitch, John Piniza. Anyway, hope I pronounced that correctly. Piniza? Anyway, I apologize. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Follow me over on the Twitch side, Ham Radio Crash Course on Twitch, and then we'll be live on the Discord as well. So again, if you join the Discord, you got to wait a little bit just for the bots to calm down, and then you can go down to the live stream chat. It's towards the bottom. Click on the chat room. There's two, hashtag and a speaker. Hashtag is the text, and the speaker is the live stream voice. And then we'll be killing it out there and talking to you live. So come with your questions. We're happy to answer them. 73. All right, thanks everybody. Catch you live on the Twitch in about 10 minutes.